The sun had barely risen when I stepped outside to rake the last of the autumn leaves off my front yard. It was quiet in our suburban neighborhood, just birdsong, the whisper of breeze, and that sharp early morning chill. I liked mornings like this. No noise, no people, just peace. My home sat at the end of a cul-de-sac in a gated HOI community in Northern Virginia, not far from D.C., where I had retired 2 years ago. Nobody here knew who I really was. They thought I was just the quiet guy with the trimmed hedges in military posture. I liked it that way. Until this morning, I heard tires screech. A black SUV with no license plates rolled up in front of my house. 2 men jumped out wearing fake tactical vests labeled HOA enforcement. One of them pulled out a black pistol and pointed it straight at me. Hands where we can see them. I froze, but not because I was afraid. My training kicked in, just like it did during high-risk raids overseas. I raised my hands slowly, calculated. The man with the gun barked again. Step back from the rake, sir. His partner was scanning the yard like he was clearing a battlefield. My grip on the situation sharpened. The guy holding the gun was jittery, cheap knockoff Glock. Bad stance. Finger on the trigger. Rookie. His partner had a badge clipped to his vest, but it was a fake. One glance told me this wasn't official, anything. I looked them both over. Mid-30s, no coordination, shaky voices. What's this about? I asked, keeping my voice calm. Violation of HOA Code 17B. The gunman shouted. Illegal landscaping. Activity. You trimmed the hedges outside of the approved seasonal window. I blinked. You're pointing a weapon at me over hedges. He didn't even blink. I could hear the neighbors whispering behind curtains. A few had peeked out already. Mrs. Caldwell from next door was on her porch, frozen with her coffee mug half raised. That can't be real, she muttered. But the men didn't care. You are in willful violation, the second man declared, reaching for zip ties. We're authorized to detain until HOA counsel arrives. My heart rate didn't rise, but something shifted behind my eyes. I've been detained in Syria, I've dodged bullets in Honduras. And now, in my quiet civilian life, I was being threatened by wannabe cops in a sleepy HOA neighborhood. I raised my hands a little higher. You boys, sure, you want to do this? They exchanged looks, uncertain. The guy with the zip ties nodded. You're outnumbered. I almost laughed. He didn't realize he was standing 10 feet from a trained Navy SEAL who had disarmed real terrorists in less time than it took him to tie his shoes. I took a half step forward. The gunman flinched, raising the weapon again. That confirmed it. He was bluffing. I glanced quickly. No safety. His finger was inside the guard. Dangerous mistake. You need to back off now, he shouted, voice cracking. This is your last warning. I kept my posture neutral but ready. You point a gun at a man in his own yard over shrubbery, and you expect him not to respond. I said softly. He stammered. We're authorized. HOA resolution passed. Just last week, that's when I saw it. He wasn't just stupid. He was scared. And scared men with weapons make bad decisions. So I decided. I stepped forward quickly, grabbed his wrist, twisted, and spun. The gun clattered to the driveway. I had him on his knees in seconds, face down, disarmed. The other guy panicked and reached for his radio. I took it from his vest with one smooth motion. Unit 12. This is 88 Bravo, I said into the radio, my voice low but clear. We've got 2 impersonators on a private residential property. One armed, both claiming authority under an HOA, requesting sheriff assistance immediately. There was a pause on the line. Copy that. 88 Bravo. Deputies, en route, ETA 6 minutes. I dropped the radio on the ground. The man on his knees looked up at me, breathing hard. Who are you? He asked. I stared down at him. Someone who's kept peace in places far uglier than this neighborhood. He gulped. The other one had stepped back. Hands up now. I looked toward my neighbor, who was filming the entire event from behind her hydrangeas. You still rolling? I called. Oh, I've been rolling since the gun came out, she said. It didn't take long for the sheriff's cruisers to pull in. 3 units surrounded the cul-de-sac. The deputies stepped out cautiously, but the moment I raised my hands and pointed to the 2 men, they went into action. The gun was confiscated, and both suspects were cuffed. Sheriff Doyle, a tall man with a flat stare, came over. What the hell happened here? I handed him the gun. Plastic airsoft replica, spray-painted to look real. No license, no authority. They claimed to be HOA enforcers. Tried to detain me for hedge trimming. The sheriff turned red. They what? They pulled this stunt like they were SWAT. No plates on the SUV either. He walked over to the car, looked inside, then shook his head. We've had reports of them hassling teens and homeowners, but never pulling weapons. This changes everything. The real HOA president arrived 20 minutes later. Kieran Rothschild, naturally, she was flustered, holding her yerky and yelling into her phone. No, I did not authorize weapons. They were just supposed to warn him. I stepped forward. You hired them. She blinked. We subcontracted private security. They Said they were former law enforcement. Looked at the sheriff, who raised his brow. Karen, he said, these men don't even have licenses. You hired mall cops off Craigslist and let them carry weapons. They weren't supposed to carry anything, she shouted. You'll hear from our lawyers. I stepped forward. Again, I suggest you call them now. You'll need a good one. She glared at me, then turned away quickly. The sheriff chuckled under his breath. You handled that professionally, he said. I was trained for worse. He nodded. I can't tell. The SUV was impounded, the two men arrested for impersonating law enforcement, and the HOA was slapped with a county violation for illegal private enforcement. As for me, I returned to my rake, the morning sun now warming the concrete. I finished, clearing the yard before lunch. Peace had returned for now. But I knew Karen wouldn't stop there. She didn't like being embarrassed, and something told me this wasn't over. But I also knew this. Next time she tried something stupid, I'd be ready. I'd faced warlords and pirates. A suburban tyrant in heels. I could handle that with one hand tied behind my back. The calm after the storm didn't last long. Just 3 days later, I received an official notice from the HOA, delivered, typed in bold, and wrapped in bureaucratic arrogance. They were fining me $2,500 for unprovoked aggression against contracted community officers. I chuckled. I'd seen insurgents spin better lies. The notice went straight into the folder I was building for my attorney. My neighbor, Mrs. Caldwell, stopped by with banana bread and a flash drive. Here's the footage, she said, grinning. Whole cul-de-sac's talking about it. We're on your side. I nodded in thanks. Appreciate it. This might come in handy. She leaned in. Karen's mad because you embarrassed her on camera. Word is she's trying to hire a new firm. Real ones this time. That made me pause. HOA goons with real credentials and real weapons. I wasn't worried for me, but I didn't want someone getting hurt. Just because their grass was an inch too tall. I met with my lawyer the next morning. He was a sharp ex-JAG officer named Reese Whitman, the kind who could quote local code in his sleep. They've stepped in it now, he said, flipping through the papers and watching Mrs. Caldwell's footage. False detainment, impersonation, weapon use, and HOA overreach. This isn't just civil. This is criminal. I nodded. Good. I don't want a settlement. I want exposure. Reese leaned back in his chair. I'll draft the lawsuit, and I'll call a reporter friend of mine from Channel 9. People love stories about HOA corruption. I agreed. I wasn't doing this for revenge. I was doing it to protect the quiet people in our neighborhood who didn't have my background, who wouldn't know how to react when someone pointed a weapon at them over a bush. They deserved better, and if I had to go back to battle mode to get it, so be it. Within a week, the story had gone viral. Navy SEAL disarms fake HOA cops, the headlines read. The footage from the neighbor's phone was everywhere. National media ran interviews. HOA watchdog groups flooded the neighborhood with flyers. Karen, she disappeared from public view. I heard whispers she was meeting with attorneys, trying to distance herself from the incident. The HOA board scheduled an emergency meeting. I went. The community center was packed. Neighbors glared at the board. People clapped when I walked. And Karen didn't show. One brave board member tried to explain. These were isolated individuals. The HOA had no knowledge of their behavior. I stood and raised my voice. You approved the contract. You failed to screen them. You threatened homeowners. Silence. A few board members resigned right there. Others promised reform. I wasn't done, though. Reese had filed the lawsuit and we were going to court. 3 months later, we stood before a judge in the Fairfax County Circuit Court. The opposing attorney tried everything. My client had no idea they were unlicensed. The homeowner escalated the situation. The firearm wasn't real, but Reese was sharper. Whether plastic or not, pointing a realistic weapon at someone is a crime. Detainment without authority is a crime. This man served his country for 20 years, and now he has to fight to feel safe in his own yard. The judge didn't blink. Her ruling was swift. The HOA was liable for gross negligence, harassment, and defamation. A $100,000 penalty. Karen was personally fined $15,000. Reese leaned over and whispered, "That'll buy a lot of rakes." I just nodded, stone-faced. It wasn't about the money. It was about drawing a line. You don't terrorize people with authority you don't have, and if you try, you better be ready for someone trained to stop you. Back home, things changed. The new HOA board sent out apology letters to every homeowner. Rules were rewritten. The entire neighborhood felt lighter, freer. Neighbors who had once kept to themselves now waved more often. BBQs sprang up on weekends. Lawns got a little wilder and nobody said a thing. As for me, I finally found peace again. My front yard was mine. My porch was silent. I spent more time with my dog, Daisy, and built a small shed with the settlement money. My neighbors gave me a plaque that said, "Guardian of the cul-de-sac." I laughed when I saw it. It still hangs on my wall. Sometimes it takes a fight to earn your quiet, but once you do, it's sweeter than anything. Months later, I got a call from a woman named Amanda. She was a single mother from another HOA neighborhood halfway across the state. They're doing the same thing here, she said. Fake tickets, threats, patrols. I saw your story, and I need help. I didn't hesitate. Send me everything, I said. I'll take a look. I wasn't a SEAL anymore, not officially, but protecting people. But never leaves you. So I read the documents, talked her through her rights, even got her in touch with Reese. Her case went to court too and she won. Word spread. I helped another family, then another. Pretty soon, I had a little file cabinet full of HOA horror stories. Some were small, some were outrageous, but they all shared one thing. No one expected anyone to fight back. Until now, they say quiet men make the loudest impact. I never sought glory. I just wanted to live in peace. But when bullies show up, whether in a war zone or wearing fake badges in suburbia, I don't run. I don't hide. I stand. And when I stand, things change. Now, whenever I rake the yard, I glance up and see my neighbors smiling, waving, living free, the way it should be. They know I'm not just the quiet guy with the tidy lawn. I'm the guy who reminded everyone that rights are earned and defended. So the next time someone calls themselves HOA enforcement and steps onto a neighbor's lawn with a clipboard, they think twice, because this neighborhood remembers. And the man who lives at the end of the cul-de-sac, he may be retired, but he's never off duty.